So while this is stewing away nicely, I'm just going to throw in about half a teaspoon to a teaspoon or so of crushed black pepper. There we go. And while that's stewing, it's time to start getting our pastry all rolled out and ready to go in the oven. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my surface nicely floured so nothing sticks. Just get a little bit of flour all over there. Not too much, otherwise it'll make the pastry quite tough, and we don't really want that. We like it to be nice and short and crumbly. So our pastry's been in the fridge for a good hour or so now. I'm going to take that out. There we go. Cheers. Now let's divide this big ball of pastry in half, I think. So get a decent sharp knife. There we go. Now I'm going to roll this out like so. You can buy ready rolled short crust pastry if you like, but I don't see the joy in it. Being able to say you've made your own pastry, it sounds impressive, it sounds like you've put a lot of effort in, but at the end of the day it is always, of course, very easy. Sprinkle a bit of flour on top of this as well to make it a little bit easier to roll. Just a pinch. Or of course you could flour your rolling pin if you wish to. It's all about what you prefer to do. So eventually your pastry will look something like this. So I've got a fairly decent sized rectangular pie dish here, which I'm just going to grease very gently with some margarine. This will help to make sure that the pastry doesn't stick to the bottom of the dish, of course. Let's grease that with my hands, or you could use kitchen towel if you prefer. So that's nicely greased. I can't see anything sticking to that. So into our greased pastry dish, we're now going to place our pastry. This is a tricky part now. Wish me luck. So we've got our pastry. It just goes in here nicely. Might need to tidy up the edges slightly, I'd imagine, on this occasion especially. There we go. So we're going to make sure that the edges of the pastry dish are nicely covered with our rolled pastry. Make sure that all the air's gone from underneath, so that it's a nice snug fit into the dish. I'm going to go around, of course, and cut off the edges of the pastry. See, it's starting to look quite a good bit tidier already. And yes, I am something of a perfectionist. But yes, we've got lots of little bits of pastry in here now that we can just press in where we've got some gaps. There we go. So that is going to form the base of our pie. So this is now all ready to go in the oven and be blind baked. And I'm going to show you how to do that right away. Now, blind baking is a very important technique when it comes to baking pies and quiches and tarts and things like that, because we want to make sure that the underside of the pie is going to be nice and cooked. The pastry's not going to be soggy, it's going to be crispy, and it's going to be nice and short and crumbly. So here's how we do that. So first of all, I'm going to take a fork. I'm going to make sure that my pastry shell here gets a really nice prick. This is so that it won't rise up too much. It'll stay fairly flat at the bottom of our pie. So I'm just going to make sure that's pricked all over. And now the pastry case can go into the fridge, just to chill for about 10 minutes or so. So the pastry shell's had about 10 to 15 minutes in the fridge to chill, and during this time I've been preheating my oven to gas mark 5 or 180 degrees C, or once again if you're American that's 350 degrees. I'm just going to line my pie shell with a piece of grease-proof paper. I'm going to fill this up with some beans, some dried beans that I have that I keep to one side for exactly this purpose. So I'm going to make sure that they're pushed right down. Like this. And the pie shell can now go into my preheated oven for about 20 minutes. There we go. Our pie shell has had a good 20 minutes in the oven to blind bake. What I'm going to do now is take it out. I'm going to remove the greaseproof paper and the beans. I'm going to stick it back in for another 10 minutes without, just to get it nice and browned. So by now our filling's had a good 2 hours to stew. The beef should be lovely and tender, and as you can see here, the anchovies, the onions and the celery have all completely disappeared and become one with the sauce, and that'll give us a nice rich deep flavour. One thing that I've had to do while the filling's cooking, and you probably have to do as well, is just to add a little bit of water now and again, just to make sure that the meat's covered for a start and that there is still plenty of moisture in the pan, because after all we do want some sauce. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a way to ensure that the sauce is nice and thick. In an ordinary bowl I'm just going to get about 2 tablespoons of softened butter and 2 tablespoons of plain flour. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make what the French call beurre manière. I'm just going to take the flour and the butter and I'm just going to combine them with a fork like this. And you'll find that this is a very simple technique that you can use to thicken any sauce you like. There we go. So I'm just going to put this filling over a very gentle heat now. One thing I'm going to remember to do while I'm thinking about it is I'm going to take out the bay leaves because no one likes them. They're there to add flavour, not texture. So we'll get rid of those. There we are. Well, that was nice and quick. Usually it takes me a little bit longer to find bay leaves, but there we go. It worked out quite well today. And I'm just going to add my beurre manière like that. Just over a very gentle heat. And I'm going to give my pie filling a nice stir. There we go, that's looking nice and thick already. That's pretty much ready to go into our pie. Fantastic. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let that cool for a little while until the pie shell is ready to come out of the oven, which will just be another couple of minutes. So the pie shell's out of the oven, and as you can see, it's nice and golden brown, and that's ready to be filled with our filling. And after we've done that, we're going to roll out the top and slap that on. So once the pie filling has cooled down nicely, the next thing to do is to roll out the other half of the pastry and then fill up the pastry case. So here we go then. That's looking absolutely perfect. Oh yes. Make sure we get all of that in there. Just give it a little smooth out to make sure that the meat's distributed evenly throughout the pie. Fantastic! And so now I'm just going to put the rest of our pastry over the top of our pie like so. And that's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to get a nice little sharp knife tidy up with. Now with a fork just around the outside, I'm just going to press that together. At the same time it gives it quite a nice fluted pattern. One last thing we need to do is just make a few little holes, little slits in the top of the pie, just to allow any excess moisture and air to escape while it's baking in the oven. That's looking fantastic. We like that. And what I've done last of all is just with a little pastry cutter, I've made quite a camp little heart shape to go on top there for decoration. Doesn't that look absolutely beautiful? Well, it was made with love after all. Earlier on I used an egg yolk in the pastry, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the white of that very same egg and brush it over the top like this. There we go. This will give the pastry a nice glaze in the oven on top. And that's nicely glazed all over. There we go. So the pie is now going to go into the oven, once again at gas mark 5, 180 degrees C or 350 degrees Fahrenheit if you're American. And that's going to be going in there for anything between 20 and 30 minutes, depending on how long it takes your oven to make it nice and brown. So there we have it. I'll take this 20 to 30 minutes in the oven till it's nice and golden brown on top. It'll feed 4 hungry blokes, no problem at all. And I'm just going to serve it very simply with some mashed potatoes, some peas and some nice gravy. Bon appetit.